Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into my official NFL week number 2 picks and predictions, where I predict the final score of every NFL week 2 matchup. And we begin on Thursday night with a very intriguing game. The Buffalo Bills sitting at 1-0, coming off that win, the comeback win against Arizona. Josh Allen, very impressive. They will be traveling to Miami to take on the Dolphins. The Dolphins behind for much of their week 1 game against Jacksonville. They did come back late and win kind of a lower scoring affair. Interestingly enough, the ESPN FPI has Buffalo at around a 50.6% chance. So they're almost predicting a tie. In essence, this should be a very close game. Miami sitting as just 1.5-point favorites at home. So Vegas does like Buffalo as the better overall team, but Miami the slight home favorite. I will be taking Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills to go on the road and kick possibly a game-winning field goal right at the end of regulation. They're down 23-21. They end up winning. It feels like this is going to be Josh Allen's MVP year. He doesn't have Stephon Diggs. He's going to do it all himself. He's going to have 7, 8, 9, maybe even more rushing touchdowns, 1,000 rushing yards or something like that, along with a pretty nice passing stat line. And I do think Miami in week 1, they weren't that impressive. Again, they were down for most of that game. This is going to be a very close game, but I just think the narrative fits Josh Allen and the Bills. It always seems like they lose right at the end. Well, this time I think they win. Both of these teams very evenly matched. Even with the Bills losing Stephon Diggs in the offseason, they're still a good team, and they were able to overcome some adversity in that week 1 performance against Arizona and get the win. And I think they pushed on that game. They didn't cover the spread, but I believe they pushed. Moving on to the 1 o'clock Sunday window, it is the New Orleans Saints traveling to Dallas. The Dallas Cowboys, their home opener, very rare the fact that it's at 1 o'clock. Normally, pretty much every one of their games is either primetime or 4:25. They're sitting minus 6.5, 60% chance to win. That's mainly because New Orleans, what did they score? 47 points in week 1. They annihilated the Panthers, and we know the Panthers are not good, but kind of a weird game for New Orleans. It wasn't like anyone had a crazy stat line or anything like that. They just dismantled them through field position and turnovers. Bryce Young, a few bad interceptions. The Dallas Cowboys just looked amazing in week 1 in Cleveland. Cleveland has a good defense. Dak Prescott kind of played game manager. They didn't have to do a ton because of how bad Deshaun Watson was and how bad that Dallas Cowboys defense made Watson look. Dallas, we know they're a high-scoring team, especially at home. I have a feeling that week 1 game for New Orleans, maybe a little bit of an aberration. Give me the Cowboys minus the 6.5 to cover, winning this game 34-20. It could be 34-14 late in the fourth quarter because Dallas is a very good defense. Maybe New Orleans scores a late touchdown, but I'm not really buying New Orleans to be this unbelievably great team. I think Dallas at home, their home opener, week 2, Dak Prescott didn't have an amazing game in week 1. He gets maybe 330 passing yards, 3 touchdowns in this one, and they score over 30 and win easily and also cover that spread. The next 1 o'clock game, it is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Man, I was wrong on the Bucs in week 1. I had them losing in an upset. Baker Mayfield, they blew out Washington. Although Jaden Daniels did have a good game. They will be traveling on the road to take on the Detroit Lions. The Lions in week 1. The overtime victory, looked like they were going to win that game. The Rams come back. They end up winning it and covering that spread. I believe they were 4.5-point favorites. They win by 6. They score the touchdown, the walk-off touchdown in overtime. They're sitting minus 7 in this one, and I think this game is very similar to Dallas. I think Detroit will win this game and score a bunch of points and end up covering a relatively high spread of 7 points, 38-21. They've got a good offense. They're at home. And the Buccaneers, look, they had a nice little season last year. They had a good week 1 this year, but they're not as good as this Detroit team, especially with Detroit being at home. I don't think Tampa Bay has a defense that's really going to stop the Lions. The Lions maybe score 17 points in the first half and then 2 touchdowns in the third quarter to go up. And this just feels like a higher scoring game at Ford Field. Give me the Lions coming off that Sunday night victory, another home game and another home win for them. Another 1 o'clock game. It is the Indianapolis Colts, and Anthony Richardson kind of had a shaky week 1. They only lost by 2 points, though, to Houston. He had a great deep ball. He's got a crazy arm. They will be traveling to Lambeau Field to take on the Packers. I believe Malik Willis is going to be their starting quarterback. Jordan Love obviously out coming off of that Brazil game, the last play of the game getting injured. That's why Indianapolis is sitting -3.5. I really don't have a ton of faith in either of these quarterbacks, but I do think Anthony Richardson is better than Malik Willis. So I will say a lower scoring game, maybe something like 17-10, 16-10. Indianapolis 3.5 is not a great number. I think this Green Bay defense, especially hosting this game, can keep Anthony Richardson down, but I do think based off of Malik Willis, he has not had a good career in the NFL, and it's not like Green Bay has this crazy talented team with all these great skill position players. A lot of it's really average, maybe slightly above average. I think they don't have the supporting cast to really help a QB like that over the hump, and they end up really struggling on offense against Indianapolis, who's sitting both of these teams 0-1. Green Bay really needs this game. I don't have a great trust in either of these teams, but I will take Indianapolis on the road to cover that 3.5. 3.5 is not a great spread. Moving on to another 1 o'clock game. It is the Jets traveling to Nashville to take on the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, my goodness, what were they up 17-0, 17-3? They blew that game against Caleb Williams and the Bears, even though Williams played horribly. Will Levis in the second half, just an absurdly bad interception, horrifically bad as he was going down to take a sack, just threw the game away. They'll be hosting the Jets. The Jets, predictably, really did not have a good performance in Week 1 in San Francisco. I was not expecting Christian McCaffrey to be out, but even with that, the Jets still got trounced and did not cover that 4-point spread. They're sitting -4 in this one, and maybe I'm missing something. I mean, listen, I think the Jets will be all right, but these are 2 back-to-back hard games on the road, at San Francisco and then at Tennessee, and there was a stat that when you go, like the opposing team going to San Francisco in a Monday night game, the next week, normally they never cover. So I will take the Jets as a winner here, possibly a walk-off field goal, but 4 points, I don't think they're going to cover that against a Tennessee team that normally plays well, especially on defense at home. Give me the Jets to win this game 20-19, but I will take Tennessee to cover that spread. And the Tennessee could very easily win that game outright. This next game is going to be San Francisco playing in a 1 o'clock window, traveling on the road to Minnesota. Minnesota was dominant. Sam Darnold looked great. Week 1 at MetLife Stadium, taking on the Giants. Very easy blowout victory. San Francisco also looked great. This could have been a primetime game, but I guess with Sam Darnold, you're not going to want to make it that. But, I mean, Sam Darnold's playing better. San Francisco sitting -6. I don't know why, but this game was really hard for me to pick. I do think that Minnesota can cover this spread. Maybe I'm buying the Week 1 hype too much from the Vikings and how good they looked on offense. They systematically dominated the Giants. But you're talking about a San Francisco team on a short week, traveling into the Central Time Zone. This is just not a great setup for them. Christian McCaffrey, I'm guessing, will be back, but that was a weird situation. I didn't even know he was on the injury report, and then randomly he's out. And Trey Mason filled in very admirably, but it was kind of just odd. So I will take the 49ers. I do think this is going to be a closer game. Minnesota hosting it, their home opener. They will play well coming off that road performance, and they will cover that spread. The next game we do have is Seattle traveling on the road to take on the Patriots. Kind of a rare game here. Seattle sitting -3.5. The Patriots, man, I'll tell you what a nice performance they had against Cincinnati. I was very surprised. I thought that Cincinnati Week 1 would want to get it rolling, especially Joe Burrow coming off the injury. It didn't happen. Very good defensive performance. You do have Seattle sitting -3.5 in this one. They had a really good defensive performance themselves against the Denver Broncos, although it was a rookie quarterback. Seattle given a 56% chance to win this game. I will be taking Seattle to win and cover the spread. I'm not trusting Jacoby Brissett and that Patriots offense. I think at some point it's going to be inevitable. They will be going to Drake May, and it probably will be sooner rather than later. Maybe they'll give him another start after this, but I do think their offense is going to struggle mightily, and Seattle will go on the road. They're just a better team at this point with a better overall roster. They win this game. 3.5 is not a great number. You'd love to get it at 3, but I will still take them to cover that 3.5 point spread in a lower scoring game there. Next, we do have the New York Giants traveling on the road to take on the Commanders. Both of these teams sitting at 0-1. You do have the Commanders sitting -2.5 in this one. The Giants just looked horrifically bad. And at this point, the Giants just need to give it up. Daniel Jones is not the answer. Go 4-13, get a top 3 pick. There's going to be a few top quarterbacks. We pretty much know they're going to draft one of those. Daniel Jones is just not good enough. He keeps wasting their seasons, and now without Saquon Barkley, that team, I mean, Malik Neighbors is going to be a really, really good receiver, but right now as a rookie with what they've got at quarterback, it's just not going to be good enough. I think the rookie at Jaden Daniels and the Commanders, they win this game and they cover 24-20. Daniels had a really good fantasy week 1 performance, basically all garbage time. But in a situation like this, it is their home opener and they get the win and cover the spread 24-20. Maybe it'll be 24-17. I don't know. That Giants offense looked really, really bad in week 1. Next, we do have the Chargers traveling on the road to take on the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers just getting trounced. I mean, it seemed like Vegas really believed in the Panthers. They only had them as 4-point underdogs in New Orleans, and they got crushed. Their home opener against Justin Herbert. And how about J.K. Dobbins, 135 rushing yards on 10 carries and a touchdown. Really impressive. Jim Harbaugh sitting at 1-0. I do think the Chargers win this game and cover the spread. It's just so hard to pick Carolina to do anything after what happened last year in week 1. Bryce Young did not show any improvement. It is the NFL. It's very unpredictable. Maybe they come back and win this game outright. You do have the Chargers traveling West Coast to East Coast, but I still do like them, even after maybe a slow start, to win this game and cover that 6.5-point spread. Next, we do have the Cleveland Browns coming off their horrific week 1 performance on the road in Jacksonville. This will be Jacksonville's home opener. They are sitting -3.5. You can see they're given a 57% chance to win. That's basically because the Browns have such a good defense. I don't know what happened, man, with Deshaun Watson. That contract might have set the Browns back a decade, honestly, because there's so much money attached to it that's guaranteed no matter what happens. It's just such a horrible situation. Jacksonville in week 1, kind of a letdown. They were up. I feel like they were up 17-7. They ended up losing that game, kind of blowing it late to Miami. Miami's a decent team, though. It's not like it was a crazy bad loss. But the Browns, certainly, they also faced a very good team, but they just looked horrific. It's very hard to pick the Browns at this point, even with a good defense that will travel. I will take another lower scoring game for the Jaguars. They win this one 21-17. 3.5 is a tough number. You want to get it down to 3. The Browns do have a very good defense, but right now with Deshaun Watson, I can simply just not trust them at this point. Next, we do have the Las Vegas Raiders traveling on the road. So the Raiders, back-to-back road games to start the season. They will be in Baltimore to take on the Ravens. The Ravens coming off a really nice long break. They played on Thursday night. They lost that game barely there at the end to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. They're sitting -9.5 in this one. This one feels like a higher scoring kind of fun game. I do like the Raiders. Now listen, in week 1, I said the Raiders would get trounced. And technically they didn't get trounced, but they did lose by like 2 touchdowns. This week, I'm backing on the Raiders. I think Gardner Minshew, he has some random games where he'll throw for 330, 350. This is one of those games. They play well. Give me the Ravens, but I do like the Raiders to cover. I like the over in this one, 29-26 the final. Kind of a weird, wacky, fun week 2 matchup there. Moving on to the 4 o'clock window, it is the Rams coming off their overtime loss in Detroit. They are on the road again, taking on the Arizona Cardinals. The Cardinals, kind of a letdown week 1 game, very conservative, didn't really look Marvin Harrison Jr.'s way at all. I don't know what that was about. They are sitting -1 in this game, and I think there's amazing value on the Rams. I will take the Rams to win this game 29-21. Maybe a little bit of a weird score, but they end up winning by 8 and easily covering. They outright win this game. They are given a 53% chance to win, so there is value on them. This is a 4:05 game. I mean, I think Arizona is going to be fine. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to have 1,100, maybe 1,200 receiving yards, but kind of a wacky week 1 performance where, I mean, it was almost like they were spotted 14 points. It's just they were up in that game and then they got trounced in the second half. And I just think the Rams coming back against Detroit, that's a good team on the road. They very easily could have won that game. They lost it in overtime. They didn't get the ball in overtime. Those unfortunate rules, but I will take them to easily win and cover that spread in this game. The 425 games, it is the Steelers. They're sitting at 1-0. They will be traveling on the road to Mile High in Denver. You've got Pittsburgh sitting -3 in this one. Justin Fields possibly starting again. They just made him a total game manager in week 1. I mean, it is sad what's happened to Justin Fields. The dude's like in his 4th year at this point, and they barely trust him to throw. I mean, most of his passes were like right at the line of scrimmage, or he was designed runs, but they did win because of their defense. I mean, they suffocated the Falcons and Kirk Cousins. And then you've got the Broncos. My God, I feel like Bo Nix set some type of record. The dude had like 42 attempts for 130 yards. I'm not kidding. Like, it was really bad. But in a situation like this, I really don't trust the Steelers offense enough. We'll see if they get Russell Wilson. I mean, I don't know. Will they want to start Russell Wilson? Justin Fields technically won. I'm not sure if he fumbled. I don't think he did. I know he didn't throw any interceptions, but they scored 18 points. They were all field goals. So kind of a weird situation. But this is the home opener for the Denver Broncos. Give me them to win this game 20-17. Lower scoring game. We know that. These two offenses are very challenged. The defense, especially for the Broncos, they will feast with the crowd energy and they win this game. I picked Pittsburgh last week when they were 3-point underdogs to win outright. Now I'm picking them to lose outright as 3-point favorites. The next 425 game, this is like the primetime 425 game, the game of the week. It is the Kansas City Chiefs at home sitting -6 again. So they've got another home game at Arrowhead. They'll be taking on Cincinnati. Really, really bad performance for Cincinnati in week 1. Listen, this is just a shot in the dark. I do think Cincinnati will rebound and upset the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs, they are obviously have a dynasty going, but even in the regular season, they will drop some games, and I think this is a game early in the season. Give me Cincinnati to galvanize after that horrible, horrible week 1 performance. I will say it was a little bit fluky. They had a tight end going into the end zone. He fumbled the ball right before. They ended up losing that game by 6. They very easily could have won it against the Patriots, but I do think they go on the road. There's good value on them, plus the 6 in this one. Normally, Cincinnati always starts off slow, and sometimes it does linger into week 2 or week 3, but I will take them to win this game outright as 6-point underdogs there. Moving on to the Sunday night game. What a weird matchup this is. It is the Chicago Bears and Caleb Williams coming off a 14 of 29 for 93 yards performance. They won the game, though. They did win the game. They will be in Houston. CJ Stroud had a fine week 1 game on the road in Indianapolis. They won, so both of these teams sitting at 1-0. You do have Houston sitting -6.5 in this one. And based off that week 1 performance, I cannot pick Houston to cover this, or excuse me, I cannot pick Chicago to cover this spread with Caleb Williams. I think maybe he'll throw 2 touchdowns, but they end up losing this game 26-17. Chicago does have a very good defense, and that's how they won in week 1. But give me Houston to win this game. 6.5 is a lot, but I do think they can cover it based off of how bad Caleb Williams was in week 1. At some point, Williams will turn the corner, but I don't know if I can predict it this early on. And then the final Monday night game, it is going to be the Atlanta Falcons traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. The Eagles with a long rest. They won on last Friday. The Falcons had a really letdown of a performance at home against the Steelers. Kirk Cousins' debut was not good. You do have Philadelphia sitting -6.5 in this one. And I do think this is a relatively higher scoring game with Philadelphia pouring it on late and covering the 6.5-point spread, winning this game 34-18. Guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure you follow me on X. Link to that's always in the description.